Hello and welcome. I'm Kateri, also known as Phenoxys. I'm a professional tarot reader and I'm here to show you my tarot collection. As always, this video is timestamped for your convenience. Feel free to skip to wherever you wish to start. My flip throughs are comment free if you just want to get straight to the goods. Today I have the Horror Tarot by the artist Abigail Larson. It is a mass market deck by Insight Editions. Anyone who is a tarot collector is shuddering upon hearing the publisher's name. More about that in a moment. I paid $34 Canadian on Amazon and shipping was free. Link to purchase is in the description. Insight Editions. I am going to be soiling their good name for the next little bit, so I'm just going to abbreviate it to IE. IE is notorious for churning out cheap licensed decks with little substance and card quality. Although this hasn't deterred people from making their decks hit the top of their bestsellers chart, they definitely prey on people who don't know a whole lot about tarot. I do have two of their other decks, the Nightmare Before Christmas one and the Supernatural one, and there's definitely a significant trend when it comes to how they approach tarot. Not just the card quality itself, but just the overall quality of the communication of the deck. Insight Edition's biggest sin is half-assing the minor suits. I'm totally okay with a Pip deck. It's not my first choice, but I'll make do. However, they want to insist on having illustrations on every minor card unique, but often not bothering to connect the card with any type of meaning. The minors end up being 1/3 Pips, 1/3 Rider-Waite-Smith, 1/3 just complete gibberish. It literally pleases no one and only succeeds in confusing beginners. So, with the other two decks that I have from Insight Editions, I got them because they were on discount. I got them at clearance. Honestly, I wouldn't bother adding them to my collection at full price. This was the exception because it is touted as a fully illustrated deck. So I decided to take the chance. So I am familiar with Abigail Larson because of the Darkwood Tarot, which is not in my collection yet, but that's by Llewellyn Publishing, and I trust Llewellyn's standards far more than I do Insight Editions. So that's why this is in my collection. I have opinions on this deck, but I'm going to let you decide for yourself how you feel about the artwork itself. It is far better than the other IE decks that I've had and I've seen, especially like the Star Trek Tarot, and they have, I think, the Skyrim Tarot, if I'm not mistaken, and they also have the Fallout Tarot coming. Again, these are all licensed decks to really kind of bring in a different type of market, but they're just not doing it any justice when it comes to an actual proper tarot deck. I'm going to go over that in a minute, but for the most part, I'm going to let you guys make your own decisions, although I will be definitely giving my opinion. So I do want to go back to where I said earlier, which was that these decks confuse beginners. There's no secret that they are trying to market to that demographic because they are pulling out, again, these almost fandom type decks that would make newer practitioners comfortable. And those are the type of decks that they're going to be attracted to. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is that the little white books in these decks are simultaneously completely useless and also super harmful. There's a lot of fear-mongering in these little white books, and it's a lot. I'm gonna definitely go into what I mean, but for the most part, if you're watching this, you don't care. You just want to see the deck. I would think that most people are. But if you are a newer practitioner, or if you are buying this for somebody else as their first deck, this is something that you need to know about the Little White Book. You may want to purchase this as a gift with a secondary book that is going to be a lot more useful to your giftee. I'm going to still complain, but let's just get into the box itself. This is a 78 card deck using the Rider-Waite-Smith system, maybe, probably, who knows. I have my rants, so let's just get right into it. Now, the box. The box is nice. That's the one thing about these boxes, is that they are beautifully manufactured. We do have some previews of the actual cards there. We have a little bit of foiling, which I'll complain about in a second. We have the book on the top. And then I love the print on the inside. It's so cute. Again, I have no complaint about these boxes because we have this nice big little white book, and then we do have the ribbon on the inside, and then we have the cards. Now, let's go on a rant about this little white book and why it sucks. I'm not gonna go on my spiel about little white books, not really intended for tarot study. You've heard it. Get a proper book. I will probably make a video at some point saying which books are best for beginners. So this little white book, again, I want my little white books to tell me why they chose the art that they chose, because that is going to be their opportunity to do so. So it just gave out. The spining just gave out. See, for how stunning quality the box is, they really just completely give up on the books and on the cardstock, which I'll complain about in a second. But anyway, let's get into it. So the one thing I found right here is that it says, "Welcome to the Horror Tarot Deck and Guidebook, blah, 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 blah." And it says, "What brings thrills and chills in a safe and playful way? Why a horror deck when some people may have concerns that tarot is evil?" So it's basically trying to make it very fun and safe and fantastic. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm really not trying to shit on that. The problem is that there's ways to do that without neutering the power of tarot. Tarot can be fun and extremely profound and at the exact same time. Unfortunately, this little white book feels like reading a horoscope blurb in the newspaper. This deck is desperately marketing itself as novelty, which is Inside Edition's bread and butter. So we have also, I find, and it's pretty, it's a nice book. Like, again, the initial presentation of these decks and everything is gorgeous, just the quality is terrible. But we do have, I find that there's a lot of emphasis on feminine energy, which is sure, fine, but again, you can tell that they're pandering to a certain market, which I find is just awkward. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it feels very shoehorned in because, again, pandering. Now, this is where I find my biggest issues. For everything that is super fluffy, because the meanings are, again, those little horoscope blurbs that don't really mean jack shit. When we go to some of the minors here, let's take a look at the Three of Swords. Loss is at the heart of the Three of Swords, which could indicate the end of a relationship or actual physical death of a beloved person. This card also symbolizes affairs, cheating, and someone who will discover an unfaithful partner. I swear to Space Christ, this is how you give teenagers ulcers. This is fear-mongering. This is how do you go from girl bossing slay that beats down mama to your boyfriend is fucking someone else and granny's gonna die of super ultra cancer? This is what I mean by harmful, because this type of alarmist attitude when it comes to tarot is damaging. Oh my god. Not even that. Again, just to show the missteps and lack of care. And there's some cute little spreads in the back, whatever, right? When we go to caring for your deck and preparing to read the tarot, honestly, it's basically copy and paste. It's the same bloody thing. But cleanse the room by opening windows for a few moments, or do a sage smudge. A sage smudge. I'm not going to get into it here. I'm not going to get into this channel, and I'm going to ask for nobody to get into it in the comments. If you know, you know. Just do better. Just do better. Anyway, I'm done with this. Let's talk about the cards. Alright, the cards here. So the thing is, when it comes to the cardstock on these, they're terrible. It's about 250 GSM. Unfortunately, you won't be able to find that anywhere. But it's They're so floppy, and they don't feel good. They feel bad. They feel like cardboard. Rider-Waite-Smith, direct comparison, like even the US games like has a nice gloss on it. This deck is older than probably a handful of people watching this video right now, and the quality on it's still great. This one I know is going to fall apart shortly. It's already pre-shuffled. I shuffled it earlier just because I wanted to really look at this deck before I made this review, because I didn't want to feel like I was shitting on it for no reason. Edging sucks because there's no edging, which is fine. Listen, there's okay with not having edging on a deck. I prefer it, obviously, because I'm a bougie snob. But the issue with this type of cardstock is that if I were to try to edge that, it's going to bleed all through it. So if I put the permanent market on it, or the Crayola market, it's just going to look like shit because it's just going to bleed. This, again, it's mass produced. I don't give a shit if I ruin it. At very least, if I put a nice blood red marker around it, it's going to bleed a little bit. It's going to look nice. But that doesn't change the fact that the cardstock sucks. And I don't care if I spoil one for you, which is one of the nicer artwork. And I'll talk about the artwork after my flip through because I do have thoughts about it. It's not a read on Abigail. She's a fantastic artist. But this cardstock does nothing for the artwork. And it just doesn't work. You can even tell on the back here, which is funny because they want to tout this as reversible. This is not a reversible deck. You can tell which ones are up and down because of that distressing that's on it. Anyway, I'm going to get to my flip through and we'll discuss more. this deck because there's some beautiful pieces in there. There's some really nice pieces. Again, I've already shuffled this. My flip through was from a recording earlier because I actually already did review on this one, and I was so flustered with it because I was doing it as I was opening. It was almost like a first impressions, and I had to literally stop and redo it. I'm redoing it now because I had to get my thoughts out. Frustrating. Like, that video is unsalvageable. It's bad. So again, there's some really nice pieces here, but then there's some hot friggin' messes. Like, when it comes to what I mean by the connections, this is the sun. What do they have in here? This is what I mean. I want the little white book to tell me what the choice was for these decisions here. I guess happiness is a clown? Maybe? I don't know. All right. We do have a little bit of foiling here on the top and bottom, which is just feels cheap to me, just because it doesn't really do anything. My biggest problem is that some of these are off center. Also, I'm sorry, I'm kind of holding them close to me, but some of these titles are off center. And because, as I said earlier, the nature of the finish on these cards, the red borders just doesn't look good. Like, the red on this guy's tie looks better than the red that's around the borders, and it just doesn't blend well. If anything, because of the finish, like that sickly green with the red border, like the red border just doesn't work because it actually does not service the art at all. That's me just complaining and nitpicking. It might not be an issue for you. If anything, it might be a feature. You might like the fact that it's a little kind of like aged looking. For me, it doesn't look aged looking, it just looks cheap. Now, there is some really nice, like, I do like the Three of Swords. When you start on, I won't talk about it again. I've already talked about it. There is some really nice pieces here. Like, I really like the Empress. Again, giving birth to that Aldrich creature. Ooh, love it. I hate the Pentacle suits more than anything. This is where I was doing the flip through, and like, I love the Temperance. It's super nice. I've seen enough Moon being the werewolf. I'm getting sick of that. I feel like it's a big trend right now. I loved it at first. Now I feel like every deck is coming out with a werewolf for the friggin' Moon card. I just want to choke it. Anyway, but we have some great minors here. Again, an RWS system, and then we just don't. Like, I love the Eight of Swords there because we have the small knife in her hand so she can free herself, which is, again, the concept of self-induced bondage when it comes to that card. But when it comes to the Mothman, he's so cute. But this is where it becomes an issue, is that for every card that is beautiful, what the hell happened here? Like, that's the only one that's really kind of like nicely illustrated. But again, I'm not really seeing where that can be, like, that's charity and generosity. Again, if we want to see Baphomet as like somebody who is a teacher, sure, absolutely. But this is where I have issues with, and this kills it for me. Like, the Pentacle suit just sucks because there is no communication, there's no attachment to the RWS system, which again would have been fine if it wasn't touted as an RWS deck. This is not going to help people. This hurts. I can definitely read with it because I can just look at it and be like, I know. But what's the point if you're going to do it for the rest of the deck, but then piss the bed on an entire suit? I wanted this deck to be great. Like, I was willing to overlook everything else. The card quality, the little white book. I was willing to, like, the borders. I was willing to look it, like, overlook it. But this is an insult to me. I know I'm being dramatic, and I'm sorry. This is coming down to personal taste. I hate it. Now, I went on my rant. So what can I say that's nice about it? They actually shuffle reasonably nice, surprisingly, because that crappy cardstock does have a nice grip to it. Like, you want to have that in between like a smoothness and a grip. These actually shuffle really nice. So I can't say anything bad there, honestly. And again, I feel like I am definitely I'm a little biased because of my frustrations towards the Little White Book, because I do so much work and so much time basically trying to help beginners not be afraid of tarot. I do so much time and work trying to make sure that people are doing tarot in a way that is healthy and good. It doesn't have to be good, just honest. And that's where my frustration comes in. So for me, any flaw is going to be immediately at that point maximized. So understand that's where I'm coming from. If you love this deck, I hope you do, because at the end of the day, it is a nice deck. Like, artwork wise, and then I would say about 85, actually be closer to, yeah, like 85% of the deck is absolutely beautiful. It's just that this is where things hurt. And again, I can find some connections there, like the spider webs can indicate, like, again, the concept of the Four of Pentacles, which is like greed or holding on to assets. So I can get behind that to a certain extent, but the problem is that overall, it's lazy. And I'm not blaming the artist for this, because obviously they did put a ton of work into everything else, but it takes a lot of work to concept pieces. I don't think people realize that. It's not just about drawing things, it's about making the concepts for it. And it's going to be easier just to draw a quick stained glass window and not put a whole lot of thought into the rest of the card if there's time constraints. I'm going to bet that there is time constraints because, as we know with mass-produced decks, it is a business machine. So there is a lack of love and attention that goes into these types of decks because they are intended to make money. I don't even know when I'm going to get on top of these, but those are actually worse than these somehow. So I've said my piece. I hope this is enjoyable to you. Please, if you do pick it up, burn this. Like, seriously, I'm not gonna burn it, but I feel like I want to burn this because of the damage that it can cause. And yes, I know I'm sounding dramatic. I don't mean to sound dramatic, but what I'm getting at is that imagine being 14 and pulling up like a card and finding the meaning and then just having like some severe anxiety around it instead of like, I don't know, man. Maybe, like, listen, if you want to use tarot to pacify your anxieties and cope, have at her, by all means, because 90% of this deck, this Little White Book is really fluffy. But maybe my spirit has been calloused and weathered by much more realistic interpretations, and I don't need a Little White Book to tell me that I'm a girl boss and I can totally slay the day, queen. Like, between that and then the fear-mongering, it sounds like, again, they're trying to market tarot as something that's spooky and fantastic and that can definitely predict things, which absolutely can. But again, it's that fear-mongering and that over-romanticizing of it all that is just not helpful. It's just not helpful. Just be practical. This is not a practical guide, and that hurts because I know that you're saying, well, I don't care, I just care about the deck. Same. The reason why I'm drilling home about this is because daily I have to tell people to stop like freaking out about tarot and just take the messages, take the advice, and work with it or work against it if it's something you don't want. It's not hard. It's not hard. It's not that scary. It's very profound. It's extremely profound practice, but it's not scary. Alright, I hope this was useful to you in some way, although I did nothing but complain about this deck. I said it 8 times already. If you like it, please get it. It's a pretty deck. Card quality sucks. Communication on it sucks. But it looks nice, so I'll give it that. If you do want to follow me on my Instagram, which is @Vinoxus, I will be posting a spread inspired by this deck, and I will be nice. It'll be a nice little horror one. If you do want to give an offering to the Algorithm Gods My Name, please like and subscribe, and comment below your favorite card from this deck. I do post tarot reviews on Sundays, so you will not be without. That's it for me. Good luck, and remember your power.